Welcome back. I am Verena Hardman.
And I'm Ken Hardman. Good intentions are not always good enough. Yes, good intentions are not good enough, especially when making potentially the most important, difficult, and complex decision of an unmarried adult's life. That's when you are choosing a lifelong marriage partner, forming a marriage, and marrying into another family. When good intentions are not good enough, they can lead to heartbreak.
That will become more apparent as you walk with us through these videos. 7 scenarios to answer challenging questions about what is ethical, about right and wrong, when asking and being considered as a potential marriage partner and a potential son-in-law or daughter-in-law. The ethics in a relationship of trust, like those in marriage, also serve as framework within which to form a healthy marriage and for answering challenging questions in this video.
If you're a single adult desiring to form a healthy marriage, or are their parent or someone desiring to support their efforts, this ethical framework, questions, and 7 scenarios can benefit you. They can help to provide more clarity when forming a marriage, which today typically begins with few or no stated, meaningful ethical guidelines. They can help prevent heartbreak and harm, and can enable greater predictability to form a healthy marriage and strengthen family unity.
It would be nice if we could reduce this video to 3 minutes. However, the topic of basic ethics to form a healthy marriage requires a few more minutes than that. We hope you will recognize the value in taking the time to participate in this video, especially if it can help to prevent heartbreak and form a healthy, happy marriage. There are other benefits too. In this video, relationships of trust ethics that premise marriage are presented as a checklist.
They are so helpful that we're including them as part of our family's written code of ethics, a moral compass. They will accompany our family written vision and mission statements to reaffirm what ideally we should become as a family and how to get there, especially during the storms and confusion of life. This video is designed for individual viewing, for one-on-one discussions and consultations, or group discussions.
We ask questions to stimulate reflective thinking and to draw out your ideas and underlying presumptions. Sometimes the implications of one's presumptions may not be apparent. You are asked to alternate standing in the shoes of 2 different adults and to evaluate their actions according to the circumstances that we describe. You can see the words that we speak in closed captions. Review the slides and pause the video at any time to reflect, write, or discuss with others your answers to the questions.
The scenarios and questions will likely stir some deep-seated emotions, so hold on to your seats. Let us begin. When you ask someone to consider you as a potential marriage partner, which also means as a potential son-in-law or daughter-in-law to their parents, you're asking them to trust you. Trust that you will at least know how to and will act like an adult, a responsible, trustworthy adult to them.
When they agree to consider and trust you, you enter into a relationship of trust with them. Evaluating one another as potential lifelong marriage partners is based on what you learn about one another, imagining a life together, and wisely predicting their future behavior and your future behavior in marriage.
It's about predicting whether you each know, desire, and have the capacity to do what is morally right, the good and the greater good, in marriage and in life. Living within our Western culture, though, there is much confusion and disagreement about that.
Historically, its moral center is shifting to prioritize unrestricted individual freedom above the common good. There is broad resistance to talk about duties because that is popularly regarded as being judgmental, lacking compassion, and for some people regarded as being downright mean. And don't dare talk about right and wrong in front of them, because they will presume that you are asserting moral superiority.
Matters of right and wrong in interpersonal relationships are widely presumed to be an entirely discretionary opinion of each individual. Those popular beliefs are reinforced by the celebrated cultural myth of romantic love as the unquestionable basis of marriage. Romantic love is an emotional and cognitive state of mind, a longing for intense, intimate connection with a particular person. It involves a whole range of feelings from euphoria to depression, depending upon whether your object of desire reciprocates your desire.
It is involuntary and simply happens to you, just like that. Bam, and you're in love. It is a temporary experience, although you don't believe that in that moment. Those feelings and sense of seemingly knowing without actually knowing why that person is your eternal soulmate are presumed to be the highest form of intuitive knowledge. It is expressed as, when you feel it, you will know it.
Those feelings are presumed to be divine, from heaven, and uniquely known only by each person who is experiencing them. Those feelings determine what is right and wrong in pursuit of one's soulmate. Have you heard it said, if it feels so good, how can it be wrong?
It is a belief system with the passionate strength of a religious faith. To question the validity of those feelings as the basis for marriage is to presume that you have no heart or are cold-hearted. Or it is a belief that fuels the resentment of a young man or woman who complains, "You are not treating me like an adult."
The consequence of that magical thinking is to distance oneself from the realities of a healthy marriage. Before introducing the 7 scenarios, there are 2 important things to keep in mind when evaluating whether the actions are ethical, right or wrong, of 2 single adults as they go through the very complicated and difficult process of evaluating one another as potential marriage partners.
One is your mindset. Please remember that evaluating their actions would not involve being judgmental, not unreasonably critical or mean. It is not presuming moral superiority.
And we urge you to not take a knee-jerk, all-or-nothing approach to right and wrong behavior. This is a critical point. Making an ethical mistake does not directly imply that a person's character is totally corrupted. When you make a mistake, acknowledge it and learn from it. And if you hurt someone when making that mistake, then apologize and commit not to do it again.
Restoring a wrong is a two-way street. The person who is hurt needs to forgive to prevent harboring resentment and anger that will fester and hurt them, and be a wall that divides and prevents the relationship from being restored and healed. The second point to remember is not to diminish the importance and meaning of 2 adults who agree to consider one another as potential marriage partners. They implicitly agree to enter into an ethical relationship of trust with its inherent rights and duties.
Yes, that is not legally enforceable by statute or contract. However, there is a sense of higher moral principles and a sense of the sacred that motivate people to respect those rights and duties, even though they are not formally written as a matter of law. They do it because it's the right thing to do. Many religious people regard marriage as not merely a piece of paper or an ethical, legal relationship of trust. They regard it as an ultimately important, holy relationship where the nature of the mutual rights and ethical duties of a husband and wife are sacred.
Okay. Think about asking to be considered as someone's potential marriage partner from a more mundane perspective. If you ask to be considered and potentially hired for a high-level executive position, you are expected to demonstrate your capacity to fulfill the duties of that position. Your resume and what you say, act, and disclose during your job interviews begin to reveal that. In this case, it is the potential executive position of a husband or wife. The duties of that position are not discretionary or optional. Let us review them, the right things to do.
You and your potential marriage partner would be trusted to act in good faith and not go through the motions of evaluating one another as a potential marriage partner only to impress your friends or followers on Facebook that you were in a relationship or to please your parents. You both are not just hanging out or just talking. You're not playing dating games of saying one thing and meaning another.
You both intend to genuinely consider one another as a potential mate and are serious about seeking a committed long-term relationship of trust, marriage. You would be trusted to be fully honest. In a relationship of trust, each of you would be in a unique position with special knowledge that the other would rely upon. What is that special knowledge? It is knowledge of yourselves. As a responsible adult, you would be trusted to make full disclosures of who you are and not conceal vital, essential to know facts about yourself that would affect the other's decision whether to marry you or their parents' decision to support a potential marriage.
When asking to be trusted, you're asking to be trusted to be loyal, trusted to act fairly and not seek an advantage over them. When two single adults and their parents do not, upfront, make the efforts to explicitly recognize their implicit ethical duties, they expose themselves to a fog of misunderstandings, moral ambiguity, serious risk, and disappointment. A potential marriage would be in trouble before it began.
Okay, here we go. Scenario 1. Imagine that you are an unmarried adult and you and another single adult agree to explore the possibility of one another as potential marriage partners, and with your respective parents to consider you as a potential son-in-law or daughter-in-law. However, neither of you nor your parents discuss any specific ethical guidelines. You just go at it and do whatever you feel is good to do.
Standing in the shoes of a single adult, fast forward and presume that you and your potential marriage partner had decided to marry one another, became engaged, and then you married. Before you married, while your spouse had made full disclosures of their essential to know, sensitive personal issues, you did not. When your issues were later discovered, your spouse was shocked, saddened, experienced a sense of loss, was confused about what your issues meant, and troubled that you had not previously disclosed them.
Before marriage, were you right or wrong not to have disclosed your essential to know, sensitive personal issues? Was it ethical? Why? What could essential to know personal issues be that singles might be fearful of disclosing? They are not ordinary fears and anxieties that come and go and do not interfere with daily life. Material essential to know issues could be anything that adversely interferes with everyday life, a marriage, and would influence the decision whether to marry someone.
It could be a person's history of pornography use, sexual relations and disease, genetic or non-genetic disease, difficulties managing anger, destructive, abusive, compulsive behaviors to oneself or to others. It could be addictions, a disorder, whether mental, emotional, personality, or physical. It could be a misdemeanor or criminal arrest or conviction, or it could be a pattern of irresponsible financial debt.
It could be a personal commitment to a workaholic schedule that extends far into the future or has no foreseeable end. Or it could be, as in some cultures, expectations that significant financial contributions, care and lifestyle of one's parents would be assumed upon marriage. Or it could be the desire not to have children, or the inability to have children. For any of those issues, is it clear to you what the potential impact could be upon a future marriage and how to manage them?
If not, pause to reflect on that question. Many marriages are in trouble before they begin because they avoided that question or are unable to manage those issues. Can you think of any other potential essential to know issues that would impact the decision to marry someone? Now for scenario 2. The positions are reversed. You had made full disclosures prior to your marriage of who you are, including your essential to know issues. However, your partner did not tell you about their issues.
When your spouse's issues were later discovered, you were shocked, sad, and felt something was lost, confused about what those issues meant, and troubled they were not previously disclosed. Did your spouse act rightly or wrongly? Had your spouse acted like a responsible adult? Why? Concealment of essential to know issues undermine relationships. They will likely be discovered and compromise trust. Left unresolved, they can fester and lead to more unintended serious consequences.
Now let us consider scenario 3. During courtship, when deciding whether to marry one another, you made full disclosures of your essential to know issues to your potential marriage partner. However, that person had delayed making full disclosures until they believed that it was the right time for them. In the moral universe of their mind, the right time was when it was apparent that you really liked them and were experiencing a growing emotional connection.
Is it reasonable that you would look forward to seeing, to talk with, to hear them, to love with them? You could feel rising hope that person might become your future spouse and parent of your future children. The best about them would likely be presumed. As the connection becomes stronger, so does an increasing sense of longing for them that feels so good and feels so right. Some people call it intensifying chemistry.
Since human beings have cognitive biases, your biases could reinforce what you already believed about the potential marriage partner, regardless of the facts to the contrary. If not well managed, your critical thinking abilities can become impaired, and facts then do not matter. Only the intense emotions of attraction and longing matter. You could wrongly idealize that person and develop a premature emotional connection with them.
Mm-hmm. That would make it more difficult to understand their essential to know issues and how they would impact a future marriage. You could underestimate or not recognize a character defect or personality disorder and their consequences. Following the rising passions of your heart can be like moving up on an escalator. It is effortless and extremely difficult to get off. As you ride on the escalator, you can experience how can it be so wrong if it feels so right.
In this scenario 3, your potential marriage partner suddenly disclosed to you their essential to know issues, which caused you to be surprised and shocked. The surprise of the delayed disclosures was confusing and difficult for you to understand how they would impact a future marriage with them. Nevertheless, because your emotional connection and longing felt so good, you reasoned, how could it be so wrong?
You diminished and disregarded the importance and consequences of their issues. Was it right or wrong for your potential marriage partner to have delayed full disclosure of their essential to know issues until you were on the escalator of desire and longing for them? Did he or she act like a responsible adult? Why? Here is scenario 4. Now reverse the positions. Your potential marriage partner had made full disclosures of their essential to know issues.
However, you delayed full disclosures of your issues until you thought it was the right time and that person had formed a strong emotional connection with you. When you made your disclosures, that person was saddened and shocked by them. Were you right or wrong to have delayed your disclosures until you thought it was the right time? Were you acting like a responsible adult? Why? These are serious questions that you may or may not have considered before.
In scenarios 1 to 4, what could have the person been thinking who did not disclose their essential to know issues until after marriage? During courtship, before marriage, what could they have been thinking to delay disclosure until it was the right time, when the other had formed a strong emotional connection with them? Could it be that they did not believe that their potential marriage partner would otherwise recognize their overall merit and feared not being accepted?
Could it have been that they were afraid of scaring away a good one? Could they have rationalized that what they did was justified because it was for the other's benefit? Could it be that they did not believe that they had a duty to make full disclosures of themselves? Could they have rationalized that they were just being flexible or just waiting for the right time? People look for or manufacture more wiggle room when perceptions of themselves are threatened.
People can deceive themselves about themselves, which can lead them to deceive others. In preparation for scenario 5, here is a reminder that there are other important relationships of trust that matter and that are intimately connected to forming a marriage. Are with your parents and the parents of a potential spouse. When you enter a relationship of trust with a potential marriage partner, you also enter a relationship of trust with their parents.
If you desire to marry that potential partner, would you not naturally seek their parents' blessing of approval and lifelong support for your marriage? That is a decision for them to make, not for anyone else. Is it not fair to say that parents have a right to know who you are and not forced to be a rubber stamp for approval? They would be your potential parents-in-law. The parents' decision would be their prediction of whether you are a responsible adult and would reliably fulfill your roles as a spouse to their son or daughter, as a parent to their future grandchildren, and your role as their son-in-law or their daughter-in-law.
You would be asking the parents to trust you to become a reliable team member and not a disruptor in their family. They would trust that you would act as a responsible adult with a reliable moral compass to know what is right and not wrong in marriage and life. Those decisions would be based on what they came to know about you. They would trust you to be ethical and to directly provide them the special knowledge about yourself.
In asking them to trust you, would you not have moral duties to them to do what was right and not wrong? Now consider scenario 5. You did not disclose your personal, essential to know, sensitive personal issues to your potential marriage partner, to their parents, or to your parents, and you went on to marry the potential marriage partner. Would concealing your essential to know issues from them be right or wrong, or ethical? Why? Did you act as a responsible adult?
What are the potential problems that could arise? Your concealments would likely be later discovered. Now let us continue to scenario 6. In this scenario, you are an unmarried son or daughter of your parents. Your potential spouse did not disclose their essential to know personal issues to your parents and delayed disclosing them to you until you had formed a strong emotional connection.
When disclosed to you, you were surprised, saddened, and shocked by them. However, your emotional connection with that person neutralized those feelings. You felt, how could it be so wrong if it feels so right? A cognitive shift had occurred in your mind that changed whom you trusted and did not trust. You had stepped onto the escalator of desire for that person. You rationalized that your potential marriage partner's issues were no big deal, even though that person would not disclose their personal issues to your parents.
Rising on the escalator of desire, you felt that you must protect your potential spouse from your parents. You feared that if your parents were informed of their issues, your parents could not be trusted to understand them and would not give their blessing of approval and support for a marriage with them. You decided not to disclose their essential to know issues to your parents and went on to marry.
You rationalize, I'm the one who must live with that person, not them. If my parents did not ask about the specific issues of concern, then I have no obligation to tell them about any. In other words, you now believe if they don't ask, then do not tell. Without that disclosure, your parents were unable to make a fully informed decision. Without their knowing, they gave their wholehearted approval and support for your marriage.
Did you and your marriage partner act rightly or wrongly by not making those disclosures to your parents? Did you both act like responsible adults? Were you ethical? Why? Now to scenario 7. This is an extension of scenario 6. You are now married. You and your spouse have experienced a sense of harmony and satisfaction in your marriage. You nor your spouse had disclosed your spouse's essential to know issues to your parents nor to your spouse's parents before or after your marriage.
Feeling very pleased with your marriage, your spouse encouraged the unmarried siblings of your families and your friends to follow your examples when forming a marriage. In other words, your spouse, he or she, advised that the personal, sensitive disclosures, what we have described as essential to know, of any adult was totally their discretionary decision to make, that they have no duty to disclose them to anyone.
If a single adult chooses to disclose them to, to a potential marriage partner, then delay them until it was the right time and to the adult's advantage. Your spouse insisted that parents have no right to directly receive those disclosures. No right, even though parents would be asked to give their blessing, approval, and support for their potential marriage with their son or daughter. Choosing a marriage partner is simply about when you feel it, you will know it. When you know it, you know it. Your spouse insisted that was simply taking ownership of one's decisions.
Were your spouse's actions and assertions right or wrong? Were they ethical? Were they another way of saying that what is morally right or wrong is simply each individual's discretionary opinion? In the next video, we will discuss the importance of interdependence and benefits collaborating with your parents when forming a marriage. See you next time.
Adios.